Well, welcome everybody. Be sure to hit the like button. Be sure to hit the subscribe button.
I remember in middle school when you felt self-conscious if you were the last one to go through puberty. That really went topsy-turvy, didn't it?
Sometimes the house barrage, it's too much explaining yourself and it's too apologetic.
Be sure to hit the notifications bell.
I actually do believe Israel won't just bomb countless civilians.
Be sure to tweet this out. Be sure to put this up on your Facebook.
You have to be kind to people. Being kind is the guys in this mess in the first place.
Put this up on your Reddit.
Chile is a country.
Be sure to cut and paste, cut and paste a link to this to go into your favorite Facebook chat group.
It's good to see so many normal people in here.
Now, spanking isn't just my deep, dark personal secret. It's America's deep, dark secret.
I've never seen it explained so simply anywhere.
Put this on WhatsApp. Put this on Telegram. Put this on your favorite messenger app.
Hello and welcome to the Untitled Anarchist Seagull channel. I'm your host, an Untitled Anarchist Seagull called Elise. And got a bunch of interesting bullshit to look at. But first I just wanted to say something that, mostly for the VOD, is I had a pretty wild experience after last night's stream. Just basically getting screamed at. Because supposedly my pointing out why we need to be fighting to get the things that we need, whether it's about, LGBT rights, trans rights, abortion rights, climate change, the fucking genocide, all that stuff. How my pointing out that that was going to be a fight that we need to be waging right now, and all the time, was going to supposedly, cost Harris the election or some shit. And I just want to talk about why that's crap. Here's the thing. There is this idea, and you read liberal pundits, you will always hear that now is not the time to put any kind of pressure on Democrats. And then later, it's still not the time, and before you know it, they're up for re-election again, and so that's definitely not the time. And then, they finish out their second term, and well, it's over anyway, so it's kind of too late, isn't it, to be doing anything. And here's the thing. There are people who do not listen to that advice. Those people's interests get catered to. There is an entire industry of ensuring that rich people are the squeakiest possible wheel that they could possibly be, and are constantly in the ears of politicians, because we have a system where money is power. We have a capitalist system. And they don't say, oh, now is not the time to be making demands of political candidates. They're constantly making demands of political candidates and handing them large wads of cash that are totally not bribes, but just happen to be consistent with in exchange for commitments to do the things they'd like to see them do. Bonsoir. The pressure is on from the other side, always. From all the rich fucks, all the white supremacists, everybody who's got, billionaire backing, that pressure is constant, and it is never-ending, and it is connected with incentives that working class people simply are not in a position in a capitalist society to offer. So those people are not listening to this idea that now is not the time. Those people understand that that does not apply to them. And anyone who actually wants to get the things that are important to them put on the given any kind of political priority, know that now is not the time does not apply to them, because people in power don't want pressure on them. The people they pay to do PR for them are in that job specifically to keep the pressure off them, to convince people that there's no need, that they've been heard, and all that sort of shit. and that so therefore they should just go home and re-brunch and everything will be cool, and when it's not cool, then find somebody else to blame for it. But that's not how we've ever won anything. That is just, and it's not okay. Like, the point was made to me that there is a very tight margin in this election. And it's true, which is really interesting because, I mean, again, the Republican candidate is somebody who most people not only hate but are terrified of. It should be like double-digit margins. And it very much could be. And in fact, the polling itself shows it could very well be, but they have to actually meet the people whose votes they need halfway, at least. Like, for example, if they really made a full-throated commitment to abortion rights and acknowledged that previously they had failed on that really resoundingly, that would actually improve their winning chances. There is polling that indicates that in key states, Harris's winning chances would be massively improved. She would get double-digit increases in her vote totals, likely, if she committed to an arms embargo to stop the genocide in Gaza, which is what people, understood to mean a ceasefire, because the U.S. could impose that with a phone call at any time. Yeah, same thing for, like, trans rights. People, polling very clearly shows even people who aren't particularly connected to the issue of trans rights are a little bit freaked out by all the targeting, all of the just massive persecution and the fucking, the incitement and these laws criminalizing trans people and stuff like that. And the thing is, if somebody were actually showing an interest in fighting to stop that in a way that would last more than an administration, then that would also significantly improve their total. The main reason that the Democrats don't sweep these things is because even when they say the right things, working class people largely do not trust them to follow through because they have a long history to look back on of hearing all sorts of lovely commitments and nothing comes of them. Yeah, that is the thing. I was like, do you understand what kind of tightrope she's watching? I was asked, and it's like, well, yeah, I've written about the fucking tightrope that Democrats walk. It's true, because they've got this situation where their fundraising base and their voting base want the exact opposite things. The things that their fundraisers want are things that their voters hate. And the things that their voters want scare the shit out of their fundraisers. Hello, River Rune. Hi again. How you doing? So, the only thing there is this constant pressure, and there is really an entire industry designed to keep that pressure off of them so that they can just do the things that the rich people who fund them want them to do without any blowback. But the thing is, if you want to, for people who have decided that the decisive thing is whether Harris wins this or not, they need to understand that Harris will be doing a lot better if she takes better positions. The polling shows that. It very clearly demonstrates that. She will have lost votes by going from, at least rhetorically supporting Medicare for all back in 2020 to just some vague stuff about people being able to afford their shitty health insurance. She will have lost votes out. So people who think that that's the key, that her winning is the key, need to be putting that pressure on her and doing it right now and constantly. Because her positions will, to a great extent, determine whether a lot of constituencies will vote for her. Like, I mean, the anti-immigrant shit that she put in that speech that was absolutely just horrifying, that will have alienated a large base of people who would never have voted for the Republicans, but are probably not going to be voting for her now. Yeah, exactly. People, workers are disgusted by hollow platitudes when we can't afford to live. Absolutely. And that's the thing. So people who think that that is the key absolutely need to be bringing all the pressure to bear constantly to ensure that they do the right thing on these things, both before they get elected and then especially after. The thing is, the trouble with liberals as a whole is, especially the ones who are really connected to the Democrats, not the ones who are who are already sort of seeing, who are already kind of alienated from them, but the ones who really kind of are connected with them often feel that they can just stop really doing anything, taking any interest in what's going on if there's a Democrat in charge. Yeah, I call it the rebrunching. Because, look, kids in cages was a huge fucking thing. Remember, everybody was supposedly outraged about it. Kids in cages are still going on. There are more cages now than there were. And now, the official position of the Democrats is that Trump isn't tough enough on immigrants. Tough enough on, isn't hard enough on refugees. You think that's going to play well with people whose families crossed, with border communities who are harassed by the Border Patrol? You think that's going to be playing well in immigrant communities? Yeah, of course not. So people who actually think that that is the thing absolutely need to be pushing her. If you don't think that that is the thing, that if you don't think that, one candidate winning or another is really what decides it, I personally do not think that, then you also still need to be just fucking fighting for the things you're fighting for, and putting on the pressure and building the power in order to force those issues, because it's the only way, whether, any of the things that are slowly being taken away from us. None of that stuff was won because politicians were feeling cute and wanted to do a nice thing for us. They did it because they were fucking scared. And they're taking it back because they've decided what's scarier at the moment, as things are getting kind of tight, is a population that actually, they feel that it is time to deal in what George Kennan called straight power concepts back all the way in either the early 50s or the late 40s. That, having all sorts of rhetorical commitments to human rights and anti-racism or whatever actually kind of gets in the way. That's where we are. The reason, the border shit, it is demonstrated that right-wing immigration policy actually does not gain Democrats any kind of votes. They still do it, and they're doing even more of it now. And we have to look at the reason, and there are objective reasons why they're doing that, because climate change is really starting to bite. And since there's no actual ruling class commitment to doing anything about it, they have to deal with the fact that large numbers of climate refugees are going to be coming, because literally it is the places they're from either no longer exist because they're underwater or are unable to sustain life. So better to just scrap all of the international legal regimen around asylum and stuff like that first, sort of quietly, and then eventually they'll just be open about it. They're starting to be much more open about it because they've decided the only thing for it is to just erect huge fences to keep people out who are just trying to survive a climate change that has been imposed on them by a system that was exploiting them to begin with. Really, all politicians can potentially be pushed if they're scared enough. What we're seeing is that it's getting harder to scare them enough. All of the 2020 uprising against racist police terror, the most that managed to do was actually force ruling class media to accept the idea, to acknowledge police abolitionism just in order to dismiss it and tell everybody either it was a bad idea or tell people it didn't mean the thing that it very explicitly means, or whatever. We are really right up against it. And the only thing for it, whether you have any hopes in electoralism or you don't, is to just fight for the things we're fighting for, and either force the matter, or if politicians decide to sort of come along, then fuck, why not? At least it'll always be temporary, but maybe some of them will try to. But anyway, so I just wanted to have said that, because I needed to get it off my chest, because I've had a couple of just absolutely maddening exchanges. My mother overheard some of my stream last night, not all of it, not enough to actually hear everything that I was saying, or what I was exactly talking about, but enough that she was just fucking livid at me for what she called slandering Harris. I mean, it's only slander when it's not true, and when everything I said was fucking true. But my point is, even if we take it from the position, the sort of liberal position that the key is winning elections, then the only thing for it is the same thing that we should be doing anyway, which is fighting for the things we're fighting for and ensuring that the ruling class gets absolutely no peace from us. And with that, we've got a whole collection of bullshit to look at. It turns out Tim Pool wrote a song. It showed up in my recommendations. So that's some very brief bullshit. We've got a bunch of videos from Matt Walsh. I've never really looked at him. And then we've got there's some Destiny bullshit. Insane ableism. Wonderful. It's Destiny after all. Leftist nearly triggers Destiny into getting banned. This is apparently Destiny's clearly very reasonable response to Thought Slime's thing on shoplifting. So, some Twat Mulch, some Destiny. We've got some turf bullshit. What's everybody's pleasure? From Twat Mulch, we've got, here's what happened when I tried to spread the truth at the DNC. Spreading in this case is, as one does with manure. Yeah, okay, let's start out with this. This should be good. And remember what we learned when the last time we were looking at Destiny. He was explaining how he would have a great if he started a media company, it would be great because he has literally no biases. Because as he
was it from this video?
He doesn't give a shit about anything. He just a wonderful guy. Okay, but here we go. Some density.
Oh, the shoplifting video? Oh, is this where I'm gonna guess, does he justify shoplifting here?
I don't know what I can say. I don't want to get banned, actually. Like, to come out and just, like, make videos, like, justifying, like, yeah, so this is why, like, stealing is good. What command?
Motherfucker, you did a whole video on why mass shootings are good when they target anti-racist protesters. Spare me your booze. I've seen who you cheer for.
And is that? There's like 6 or 7 of these where, like, if you break them, you're probably just not fit for human society. There we go. This one. Don't steal.
Well, how does that apply to appropriating the labor of others in order to there's some pretty basic ones.
Well,
I mean,
I'm
if
sure
the
some
Ten
economists
Commandments say you shouldn't do it. That's just clearly that's a complete argument right there. I mean, this is why he's an ace debater. That's why he's such a master debater, because he comes up with the absolutely convincing arguments, like the Bible.
who should log off would point out that, like, okay, sure, but Nintendo only makes Nintendos because they can sell them at big retailers like Walmart. Walmart's got to have that stuff because that's how the market distributes goods to people. If we stopped paying for goods, what would incentivize Nintendo to make Nintendos? Who would manufacture and distribute Nintendos? Also, less important...
I seem to remember when Xander Hole took a swing and missed at this one. All of his fucking chat was freaking out at the use of the plural Nintendos. Which I should note is the plural I grew up with.
all other goods. And, like, I don't want to overstate my case here, but here's why all of economics is fake. It's a fake idea for rubes and fools, and there are literally no worthwhile ideas to be understood from the entire field of economics. Every economist you've ever heard of is a fraud.
I mean, and note the words you've ever heard of.
Still make Nintendos because we like to have Nintendos. They're nice. Nintendo actually stopped making Nintendos like decades ago, and people still make them all the fucking time. People build enormous, expensive infrastructure to preserve and maintain abandoned software for Nintendos at great personal risk. They do it better than Nintendo does, despite Nintendo making millions of dollars from getting to do it. You literally could not stop people from making Nintendos if you tried. I know this because Nintendo has tried, and that is true of literally every single consumer good you can think of. It is someone's passion to make.
Every single consumer good, like suitcases or plungers or...
Yeah, exactly. There are people who actually want to make the best plunger in the world because they just think that because it's something they want to do. There are people who love designing and making shit. Like, I've been sort of mentally, quietly working away at trying to make a better fucking cheese grater for hard cheese because I've been dissatisfied with literally every single thing I use for Parmigiano Reggiano. He's no cunning linguist. Indeed. Indeed.
Paint?
Yes, you know who's really likes to make really good paint? Fucking artists. There are people whose entire passion is coming up with different colors of fucking paint in order for people to be able to paint shit with them. Like, there's this thing in capitalism, it's called alienation. And it turns work that could otherwise be quite enjoyable and worthwhile and fulfilling into shite. Into drudgery. Okay, fucking Stephen Boner really needs to work on his OPSEC because I'm looking at his fucking logins right now on the screen. Dude, do you not know that OBS will allow you to crop these windows so that people can't see your fucking logins?
Or, like...
the extent that they would give up everything in their life for the chance to do it for a living, and they would find a way to do it better and more efficiently than any business could ever hope to.
Individuals can manufacture goods at scale more efficiently than large businesses?
He didn't say at scale. It's worth noting.
Why not go do... If they could, then why not go do it and have a whole bunch of people become millionaires?
His point was that people already are doing it. They're often doing it, despite the fact that companies are suing them for doing it. Like, okay, there's a guy, if you have a Mac, he's a very good guy to follow on YouTube. His name is Louis Rossmann. Politics are kind of shitty libertarian right-wing crap. Yeah, but not to such a degree as thinking that corporations should, like, have the right to make it impossible to repair products. So it's, as with most right libertarians, kind of inconsistent there. But his whole thing is that he repairs the motherboards on Macs, on iPhones. He does iPhone data recovery, something that it's worth noting Apple lies to people and says is impossible. Why they lie to people about it is not clear to me. I don't understand what the motivation is, because they could charge people through the fucking nose to do it, but they claim that that iPhone data recovery is impossible. But he does it. He does it because he just actually enjoys this shit. Apparently, Density's thing before this was carpet cleaning in Vegas. So, like, I mean, that's a job. Probably better at that than you.
So that's possible. Just go outcompete like every big box retailer. Go shut them all down. Like,
except his point is, if you actually understood anything about this, but Stephen Organelle makes a point of not learning anything about stuff, because it would make it harder for him to debate if he knew things about things. It's much easier if you don't know things about things. That capitalism is the problem here. That capitalism and the commodity form are why people don't go and do that. Because if you got rid of those two things, there would be literally nothing stopping people doing it.
Also, hundreds of other people would find doing it pretty interesting and fun if they were allowed to do so on their own terms. People literally, for fun, play video games about long-haul trucking, and you're seriously trying to make the argument that without the profit incentive, nobody would want to do a boring job, like trucking, or cleaning public infrastructure, or farming. Hey, economists, what are you talking about? Why are you like this? Why do I have to keep explaining to you, economists, that accomplishing things feels good? Get the fuck out of here, economists, for real. What the fuck, you guys? But somehow, the Walmarts of the world have convinced us that if they weren't there to own everything before we owned it, why would anyone make anything? What?
I'm good, dude. This.
He doesn't know what he's gonna do. This should be good, because I mean, okay. I mean, I've seen Xanderhole and Vush do a horrible job responding to this because they don't understand the argument either.
I've watched this guy's videos in the past. His Thought Slime. This guy's one of...
Yeah, I wonder if you watched the one that Thought Slime did about him, where he used him as an example of what he called, and I love this term, the liberal mind prison.
The most stupid. Let's go that way. One of the most stupid people. Oh, God. Was it from this video, the shoplifting video? Oh, is this where does he? I'm gonna guess. Does he justify shoplifting here?
Is that okay to do? Now look, I work on a platform owned by corporate oligarchs. I can under no circumstances advocate committing crimes. At least, not the ones that corporate oligarchs don't like. I could advocate hate crimes all I wanted, but I don't want to do that. It is again...
And speaking of corporate oligarchs, apparently the CEO of Telegraph got arrested in Paris. In part because his moderation doesn't stop, like the Palestinian resistance posting videos of their operations in Gaza on the platform. Just because the EU wants to remind us that they're very much complicit in the fucking genocide, even if the US gets a lot of credit.
It's the shoplifting.
Hold on,
Is that okay to do? No.
I have shit I have to do today. I don't have time to watch this moron. Okay, let's...
Look, I work on a platform owned by corporate oligarchs.
Video. So he just doesn't have time.
I can under no circumstances advocate committing crimes. At least, not the ones that corporate oligarchs don't like. I could advocate hate crimes all I wanted, but I don't want to do that. It is against the rules to advocate for normal criminal behavior, and it's...
Has Matt Walsh ever advocated for hate crimes?
Yes, he has, and you have too, motherfucker. And didn't you get banned from Twitch over advocating for hate crimes? Celebrating?
Not the ones that corporate oligarchs don't like. I advocate hate crimes all I...
Is this documentary, What is a Woman? This wasn't hosted on YouTube, correct? So we're already on 2 strikes. He's a guy that I do not like. I don't like Matt Walsh, but we're already 0 for 2, but okay.
Well, no, but the thing is, he does have a channel on YouTube, you dickhead. He does advocate hate crimes on that channel and violate TOS in a million different ways that YouTube doesn't seem to mind about. I mean, if YouTube gave a shit about TOS when it comes to things like the racism and the transphobia and stuff like that, PragerU, Matt Walsh, fucking, you know, like half of the people we watch on here, would not have channels if they actually enforced TOS. So, like, yeah, it's true. That actually, I mean, enough of that movie, enough of that bullshit fake documentary was hosted on YouTube in the form of clips that if their TOS meant anything, which it doesn't, then he certainly would have been banned.
Wanted, but I don't want to do that. It is against the rules to advocate for normal criminal behavior, and it's actually enforced, so I would get in trouble. I could potentially lose my livelihood and my ability to support my family, which is kind of ironic given that, like, 95% of the content...
Matt Walsh does have a YouTube channel, though, right? Hold on, let me just make sure.
Yes, he fucking does.
Yeah, he does. Okay.
Then on this platform is itself stolen.
Has a YouTube channel.
I definitely couldn't show video evidence of me performing a crime. That would be a serious no-no, and that puts me in an interesting ethical position because is itself stolen? I definitely couldn't show video evidence of me performing a crime. That would be a serious no-no, and that puts me in an interesting ethical position because obviously sometimes crimes are the right thing to do. You know, sometimes, like, there are plenty of extreme circumstances I could point to throughout history where virtually everyone can agree that it was morally permissible, even necessary, to defy an unjust law. Like, nobody's going to seriously...
Okay. I mean, so far Density's been pretty quiet.
Suggest something like the Underground Railroad was immoral simply because it was illegal, and anybody that does suggest that is probably just a garbage. Now, I'm sure you could craft some devil's advocate using some absurdly strict principle.
No, Density is already working on a way to craft a certain devil's advocate to explain why it was probably bad to have the Underground Railroad right now.
You gussy it up with like a half-baked appeal to a moral imperative, so it sounds like you're not just being a weird racist contrarian, but nobody's gonna buy that. You're just being a garbage. Get a hobby, try knitting. But shoplifting is not really that kind of circumstance, is it? It's a bit of a gray area. That's the type of crime that virtually everyone has at least some experience with, even if they've never done it themselves. So everyone's got an opinion on it, and it can get pretty heated. Oddly enough, a lot of shoplifting discourse seems to get heated specifically because somebody made a comic strip about shoplifting, either a good, based comic, or a bad, cringe comic. And shoplifting discourse seems to get heated specifically because somebody made a comic strip about shoplifting, either a good, based comic.
Like, is he gonna say anything? Is he just gonna watch the fucking video? I mean, I got nothing against watching Thought Slime. This stuff generally
Okay,
holds up
the
to
good
both
based
reviews.
comic is just somebody shoplifting? Okay.
Way back.
Yeah, it was a good comic, and the artist who did it, yeah, actually got a huge amount of shit on Twitter for doing
cringe comic.
Oh, and then this one was anti-shoplifting, so it was a cringe comic.
No, it's not cringe because it's anti-shoplifting. It's cringe because it's a shitty argument.
Okay.
And, you know, someone makes a comic you disagree with, you don't gotta be shitty to them, just leave them alone. Everyone agrees that there are, of course, times when it is morally permissible to steal. If you're starving, nobody expects you to just die about it. Most people would not judge.
In fact, there are legal systems where it's not only morally correct, but the courts have held it doesn't constitute an offense. A court actually in Italy, a few years back, actually held a guy was brought up on charges of shoplifting food, and he couldn't afford food. And so the court had the absolute bare minimum of human decency to say, no, eating turns out to be a biological necessity that we as biological entities have, and therefore you can't call it a crime when somebody tries to get their minimum caloric intake covered but hasn't got the money for it.
You for stealing a loaf of bread to feed your hungry family. Everyone except, like, the food professor, of course. But, you know.
I don't think people starve in America.
Of course he doesn't think that because he hasn't bothered to look it up. Actually, child malnutrition is a serious problem in the U.S. Food insecurity is a serious problem. It's been getting worse. But, yeah. He doesn't think people starve in the U.S. He doesn't think people starve in Gaza. He doesn't think that hunger is a thing, apparently.
I would need to see data on that. This just doesn't happen.
Well, why don't you look some up, motherfucker? Because this does happen. And we're not just talking about the U.S. First of all, Thought Slime's not in the U.S. Thought Slime's in Canada. Which is in the U.S. for all intents and purposes. I mean, especially, like, Stephen Harper did say that U.S. cops can just cross the border whenever the fuck they want and arrest Canadians on U.S. charges without going through extradition and stuff. Yeah, I mean, the U.S. is comprehensively up Canada's ass, but it is technically another country. Like, they have really crappy-looking, different banknotes and everything, and a very slightly different accent. Canadian English is the wildest thing just because of that, because the differences are so subtle. You know, just about every other variant of English, it's like, yeah, it's pronounced in a totally different part of your mouth. Canadian English is like, there are a couple of vowels that are different, and occasionally Britishisms are used, but not so often that you immediately notice.
Our homeless people in America don't starve. Starvation is like a...
Wait, you just said you didn't know density. Steve, you said you didn't know, you'd need to see data, and now you're saying it doesn't happen. You didn't see data, it's only been like 2 seconds. So maybe shut the fuck up.
So much food here. And there's so many ways to get food. Even our homeless people are like fat as fuck in the United States.
Motherfucker, that is not a sign of health. That is a sign of the quality of food they're getting. I mean, that's the thing. This is a line that fucking Rush Limbaugh used back in the 90s. Like, yeah, this is the only country where all our poor people are fat. Well, why is that, interestingly? Why is it that it used to be the other way around. You go back 100 years, the reason, you know, rich people are called fat cats and always, like, portrayed as being fat and stuff is because they were eating, actually, often very, like, fatty, very butter-intensive meals and stuff like that. Whereas poor people couldn't afford that shit. Now, on the other hand, you don't see that quite as much, because rich people are getting the higher nutrition foods, the higher quality stuff, and poor people are getting whatever the fuck they can in between their 20 jobs.
Now, there's arguments to be made about not having access to high quality food. I think food insecurity can be measured in lack of access to high quality food.
Well, it's also just measured in the ability to pay for food. And on the ability to pay for food, the U.S. does not do well. In fact, I mean, when was this? I don't want to attribute things that didn't happen yet. This is last year. Okay. Last year, I can say this, because this was already fucking going on. I mean, some of the just ridiculous inflation that we had, food inflation, in the past couple of years, which at one point was actually, the official number was like 20%. Okay. So, you're telling me you didn't notice that maybe there are people who can't afford this shit?
People are not starving to death in the United States, and people are not shoplifting because they're starving to death. This is...
Again, Stevie, you said you wanted to check the data. You should check the data. People are not, people are literally shoplifting because they can't afford food. That does happen. And if they're not starving to death in that situation, it's because, in part, they're managing to nick enough food to, like, cover basic nutritional needs.
Does not happen, okay?
And also, why is this just the U.S.? I kind of derailed myself when I started talking about Canada and Canadian English. But he didn't specifically say the U.S., and he's not in the U.S., and even if it were in fact true that nobody was starving, that there was no food insecurity problem, with people being able to afford sufficient food in the U.S., the country where, like, 5-year-olds can go in debt for school lunch, remember. Worldwide, there certainly is quite a bit of starvation. There certainly are people who are fucking starving to death. So why did you limit it to the U.S.? That's meaningless.
Hold that against you. So for the sake of arguing, let's ignore shoplifting that is done strictly to survive. We can agree on that much, I think. I'm not really interested in appealing to the type of trash brain who wouldn't agree with that. If you think people should die rather than steal a loaf of bread...
Nobody is arguing this. Literally...
Enjoyed it a lot.
People literally are arguing this, though. I mean, again, Stevie, Organelle, Boner, you should maybe actually look these things up. There are people who are literally arguing this. Like, the guy who was starving and stole a loaf of bread and got acquitted because the judge decided that didn't constitute an offense. The only reason it went before a judge is because a fucking prosecutor decided to argue the other case. But even allowing that, he's specifically saying he's skipping over that because he feels that is not the one that is not a particularly contentious issue.
Destiny DGG.
Thanks. I'm pretty sure.
Tell us about the Telegram thing that happened. You rock. Sign of the Horns medium light skin tone.
Thanks. He just talks a ton of shit on his Telegram, but I think he doesn't know that people check it. I have no idea. I'm pretty sure even Ben Shapiro would say if you're starving to death, it's probably okay to steal a bagel from a fucking store. I think.
Yeah, but that's why he just said that's not the kind of fucking shoplifting he's going to be talking about, because he thinks pretty much anyone except absolute ghouls would be cool with that.
Anybody would agree with that. This is like the lowest tier of arguments, but that's okay. We're just getting started. Okay.
I just gotta question your moral priorities. Likewise, I think most people can agree that stealing from small businesses is, at the very least, less defensible than stealing from big corporations. Obviously, not all quote-unquote small businesses are created equal, but there's clearly a difference between stealing from a local business and, like, Best Buy. We could get into a whole discussion about gentrification here, and how small business is a term that's often used as a smokescreen for a sort of petite bourgeois assimilation of places that poor people had once lived. Nothing is simple, everything is complicated, but generally, we can agree, I think, that it's worse to steal from Dave's Cool Soup Store than from Walmart. So, we will focus here on stealing from big corporate chains, since that's what most people tend to argue about anyway. That it's petite bourgeois and, like, big corporations. Obviously, interested in appealing to the type of trash brain who wouldn't agree with that. If you think people should die rather than steal a loaf of bread, I just gotta question your moral priorities. Likewise, I think most people can agree.
Wait, you just listened
to this. Obviously, not all quote-unquote small businesses are created equal, but there's clearly a difference between stealing from a local business and, like, Best Buy. We could get into a whole discussion about gentrification here, and how small business is a term that's often used as a smokescreen for a sort of petite bourgeois assimilation of places that poor people had once lived. Nothing is simple, everything is complicated, but
fucking Density needs to shoplift some hairspray or something. What the fuck's up with this, like, what the fuck's up with this haircut?
Generally, we can agree, I think, that it's worse to steal from Dave's Cool Soup Store than from Walmart. So,
we kind of just breezed by that, but okay. So stealing from wealthier people is more moral than stealing from poor people. There's probably some level of truth to that, but holy cringe.
What's cringe about it? What, like, literally, what's cringe about this? Rich people stole the shit they have.
we will focus here on stealing from big corporate chains, since that's what most people tend to argue about anyway. That's one concession per side of the debate, which should equal out, but I'm sure will make both sides feel as though I'm selling them short. From henceforth, unless I specify otherwise, when I say shoplifting, I am referring specifically to stealing from a big corporate chain for fun and or profit, or some reason other than strict necessity. Is that the most typical form of shoplifting? Probably not, but it's the one.
It almost certainly is, no?
Well, again, Density, you said something about data.
You think that the majority of people that steal in the United States, when we look at like the big thefts and shit, is it for food?
Actually, judging from the fact that a lot of convenience stores and you know, drugstores and places like that are putting shit like baby food behind those locked enclosures that they used to use just for cigarettes and booze and things like that, I would say that there's gotta be a fair bit of it going on. Because otherwise, why would you justify the investment? It's a pain in the ass to put the thing in. You have to pay for it. You have to maintain it. And it means you have to have staff who will go over there and unlock it every single time somebody needs something out of there. You wouldn't be doing that if that wasn't stuff that people were stealing.
That I'm most interested in arguing about. Once again, even if, hypothetically, I believe that shoplifting was based and or slime-built, I could not advocate for it directly. Even if I could, I'm not sure I'd want to be responsible for you making that kind of choice on account of jail. Whether or not I think shoplifting is ethical kind of puts aside the issue of whether or not it is a good idea to do. Please use appropriate caution and do not base major life decisions about what crimes you should or should not commit based on what a YouTuber talking head told you. This is an opinion piece. It's not, you can't show this video in court. They won't accept it. Pro-shoplifter people, and full disclosure, this is the side I tend to be more sympathetic with, in case you couldn't tell already, will claim that anti-shoplifters are just bootlicking sycophants brainwashed into believing corporate propaganda. And if that's the case, maybe then we should try to be a little sympathetic to people who are affected by said propaganda, because I don't think it makes a lot of sense to get angry at someone for believing something they have been brainwashed about. Anti-shoplifting people tend to argue that shoplifting is bad for the vulnerable employees of large corporations. That's shoplifting trickles down to harms innocent people. Shoplifting believe their crimes are victimless, or at the very least, the victims of their crimes are people who kind of deserve it. But that's just a convenient excuse to justify doing whatever stupid stuff. Anyway, I think it's here. Putting aside for now, it seems like arguably that it works with online corporations. Nothing more or less fine. Even if it's bad, it's not abstract sense. It's hard to get
steal entertainment from my streamer. He will never see the day.
Here, because I don't want to spend the entire time watching the based shit that Thought Slime is saying. I want to look at the wax shit Steve's going to say. Steve the Destiny.
The harm only matters even when that harm begins to affect regular people who might
Steve the Destiny.
Actually lose something in the process.
Like Steve Morrissey. except with less talent.
I don't know what I can say. I don't want to get banned,
Phoenix.
actually. I don't like these people. I don't want any of these people in my society. I actually really don't.
It's not your fucking society, I think you'll find. There's a lot of people. Most of them not right-wing influencers. We're watching Steve the Destiny. Yes, that is Steve the Destiny. Responding to Thought Slime on shoplifting.
Like as much as I would hate like a fundy like Islam suicide bomber or like any other, like I don't want these people living in my country ever.
You're lucky he's not. He's living in Canada. I know, being from the U.S., you probably don't recognize that that's a different country, but technically it is. Like, they got a whole flag and stuff.
Holy shit. Oh, I like to come out and just like make videos like justifying like, yeah, so this is why like stealing is good.
Motherfucker, you did a whole thing where you brought in actual academic specialists on Palestine to make a whole video on why genocide is actually okay. Maybe don't. Well, that actually happened after this, but it would have been in his head, and it's certainly after he decided to become a fanboy for Kyle Shittentraus, and he's gonna. Yeah, but saying that shoplifting's probably not the not bad is cringe, motherfucker. I really don't think that your concept of cringe is particularly valid.
Like, what commandment is that?
Oh wow!
There's like,
I mean, if the fucking Bible says it. I mean, what? Maybe go through the other ones. Show us just how fucking relevant and rational a set of rules that is. And just leaving aside, of course, a completely different social structure, and B, actually, these lists of commandments are not in the source text. That is something that people who interpreted it put together, and they did different versions of it depending on which bits they thought that were most important. But I mean, like, leaving all that stuff aside, that's what your argument's gonna be. It's the Bible's against it, motherfucker. I think the Bible's against your haircut.
There's like 6 or 7 of these where like if you break them, you're probably just not fit for human society. There we go. This one. Don't steal. There's some pretty basic ones. Like don't kill people, don't steal from people.
Okay,
like,
this guy just went off on how I'd have to see the data on food insecurity in the U.S. before I could accept that there's anyone who is starving because they can't afford food. But when it comes to the 10 Commandments, he'll stop and look that up. Wow, I mean, this guy certainly merits the level of inexplicable respect that he gets.
I feel like if you can't abide by that, or if you're trying to make like,
give us your thoughts on the Milo debate.
Oh, that sucks, Phoenix. I'm just noticing this.
Yeah.
Personally, I thought Milo was horrible.
Well, okay, yeah, he was. They just shouldn't be here. Like, just go somewhere else. Actually, like, forcibly expel people that think that you could like justify it.
Okay, so literally, he's cool with forcibly expelling people who think shoplifting is cool from their country, right? But not shoplifting. Like, which one it does more harm, do you think? The mass deportation of people who disagree with Steve the Density? Or shoplifting?
It's actually so insane to me.
The damage down to their employees rather than absorb it themselves. I think, though, the degree to which this actually happens is dramatically overstated. Anyone who's ever worked one of these jobs can tell you they're paying you as little as they can possibly get away with, no matter what. They don't give a shit if their employees are preventing shoplifters. They're going to squeeze them as hard as they can, period. To wit, the greatest form of theft is almost universally not shoplifting, not robbery, not car theft, but wage theft. And, that's putting aside the...
It's not... These are two...
Oh, okay.
I like how they call it, like, wage theft. Like, it's the same type of thing.
Yeah, but it is the same type of thing. It is literally refusing to give people what they are entitled to, or literally physically stealing their tips, which a lot of employers do. I mean, you're literally denying people the control and ownership over stuff that belongs to them. That's why it's called theft.
Like, if people are shorting their employees' wages by one means or another, and I've seen a lot of different ways that people measure this, obviously that's wrong. Like, that's not good. But it's not like theft in the traditional sense, like somebody's stealing something from a store. They're
Yes, in the sense that the store is probably insured against that. They can make a claim, and probably they weren't relying on just the one thing that got nicked. Like, the difference is that workers can't recoup that. The workers, if they get screwed out of their overtime, if their bosses decide to steal their tips or something like that, they're just fucked. They've got to eat that. There's no insurance covering that. There's nothing they can do to recoup that, except, of course, to, like, organize and force the boss to hand over what's coming to them. But, I mean, he's actually trying to make the argument that the shoplifting is worse than wage theft. Like, inherently.
two kind of different things. But also, again, they're not, it's not.
Yeah. And let's just remember, passing a bogus bill is legal. As long, if you have one and you spend it, you're not liable to arrest. You just get informed, because it's not an offense to actually spend a bogus bill that you did not know. Oh, okay, well, that's good to hear. Yeah, people certainly are, and fucking, I mean, Density, Steve the Density, his whole thing, the reason he's such a fan of Kyle Shittentraus is that he shot some protesters because they might have damaged property.
Not the same thing. Also, I wonder who wage thefts more, big business or small business?
Actually, small business do quite a lot of it, but the point is, wage theft is the most common kind of theft. It is literally more, there's more economic damage done by wage theft than by all other forms of property crime combined.
We're curious on that. I wonder if he links a study of like, well, where does the wage theft occur? I'm sure that by absolute number, it's probably big business, but I wonder by per capita, like per employee hired. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, again, it's not an important thing like the fucking 10 Commandments or something. But I just love how, like, screwing workers out of what little money they have coming to them is okay. But it's cringe to say that shoplifting is probably fine.
The theft of surplus value in the first place, like all wage labor, could be said to be a form of theft. Also, we don't tend to count in these studies the theft of, say, a continent. Often this is framed around the idea of how theft will affect the store's bonuses, or the rate that they give out raises, or the hours they give their workers, or whatever. And like,
isn't shorting a wage easier to do accidentally compared to shoplifting? I feel we should.
It's not fucking an accident. And if it was an accident, it's easy to fix. Like, if you accidentally failed to, like, note down somebody's OT on their timesheet or something like that, and they come to you and say, yeah, I had OT coming to me for yesterday, and it doesn't seem to be on my sheet, you just fix it, and it's cool, and everybody's fine. That is not what's going on. This is situations where people are literally, you know, from the start, forcing people to do work that they're not getting paid for.
Fuck. I feel like I looked into this at one point, like how is wage theft calculated? And I feel like some of the ways that they, on like the largest study that accounts for it, it'll say things like what was it? Like if you clock out early or clock in late, or there was like, it was just like a really weird way of calculating it. Like
yeah, it's really weird because it says that if you're working and they're not paying you for it, that's wage theft because you're supposed to get paid for working. Isn't that weird?
When people talk about wage theft, in my mind, what comes to mind is like, wow, your employer's actually stealing money from you. Like they're taking money.
Well, yeah, they are taking money from you. They are stealing money from you. And yeah, I hope so too, Phoenix. I have gone through the dental wars myself, thanks to an incompetent dentist here in Cincinnati that He's not really called Steve the Density. He calls himself Destiny. But he's a twat, so I'm calling him Steve the Density. Because it's a twat name for dickheads.
Money from your wages somehow, but I don't think that the way that wage theft is calculated, it's not usually like that. It has to do with like weird clock shit, I think. But
weird clock shit, yeah, because our working lives are organized around this weird clock shit where there are times, and sometimes that time is 9, and sometimes that time is 5, and sometimes that time says that you have to get paid time and a half, but don't tell your boss that or you'll get fired.
I'll go and look this up, or fuck it, we can just I don't have time to like.
No, because well, I don't know if he was doing it on a waged basis. I just know he referred to the fact that at one point he was cleaning carpets. For all I know, he owned the fucking business. But I mean, he's obsessed with this because again, Steve the Density is he's a twat.
What is wage theft? Examples of wage theft include paying less than minimum wage, not paying workers overtime, not allowing workers to take meal and rest breaks, requiring off-the-clock work, or taking workers' tips.
Yeah, and like physically taking workers' tips. I mean, if we're really gonna say that what matters is like whether you physically taking a thing that belongs to somebody else rather than withholding something that you were required to hand over, then the tip theft certainly counts. I mean, if we're going to say that that is the moral distinction you're making, I don't think that works.
So about half of this is minimum wage violations. Does this mean that they're employing illegal immigrants?
No, it does not mean they're employing illegal immigrants. It does not mean that. It means that they are paying people less than the statutory minimum wage. And there are all sorts of ways to get to do that. One of them, as the little blurb that he looked at points out, is that you don't pay people their you force people not to take their paid breaks. Like, Amazon's really big on this, because they will say, in all their propaganda, they'll be like, yeah, look, we give people the exact minimum number of paid breaks that they've got coming to them, but they're scheduled in such a way that if they actually take those breaks, they will not be able to meet their quotas and they will be disciplined for that. So that's wage theft. Because you're forcing people through a cute little artifice not to take the paid breaks they got coming. So in that sense, you are making them work unpaid time. And yeah, off the clock violations, when you make somebody work without actually clocking it, putting it on their timesheet and paying them for it. Rest break violations, yeah.
Isn't that the only way to pay less than minimum wage?
No, it isn't the only way to pay less than minimum wage. Like, you can just literally not pay enough. Lots of, for one way to do that is to like treat somebody who is actually a waged worker as if they are a faux independent contractor, and so you give them a lump sum per job, even though you're their only client, and so then it works out to less than minimum wage. And they're also having to pay the employer's share of tax on that, and all sorts of other things. There are a million ways you can fail to pay sufficient wages. It really shouldn't be hard. Yeah, this is wild. I mean, this is so in character, though, that this is what he would get hung up on. The idea, it's cringe to suggest that shoplifting's cool. But to like try to find a way to argue that wage theft, which screws millions of workers out of the shitty pay that they had coming to them in a time when it's already really hard for them to survive, even if they were getting everything that was coming to them. I mean, that is such a Steve the Density move.
Unless you're paying cash,
Why
obviously.
does it sound like Cameron is trying to roll back the odometer on his dad's Ferrari in the background?
Like, but that's, you got a whole bunch of illegal shit. Tipped employees? How are you paying tipped employees less than minimum wage?
Easy. There's minimum wage, and then there's not. Then there's less than that, and so you take minimum wage and you subtract from that. But I mean, the main way that tipped employees get stolen from is that the owners will simply claim their tip. Will just take their tips. In fact, if you watch the Gordon Ramsay cinematic universe, it is amazing how brazen these restaurant and hotel owners are about stealing tips. Night, goeienacht, buenas noches. Like, I mean, they don't even act like there's anything that they should, they don't understand that this is something that maybe they should be a little bit coy about. They'll just be like, yeah, the tips are my money. And it's like, motherfucker, no, they're not. You're fucking stealing from your employees.
Cash in hand for local workers or those under... Yeah, if you're paying cash, you could do it, but there's a whole bunch of...
Yeah, you can... If you're paying cash, you can do pretty much anything. But you do not actually need to pay cash to do it. Because you can get somebody below minimum wage simply through the number of hours and the total you pay them. If you... Okay, like, for example... Let's say you pay somebody for 9 to 5, and you pay them right on the minimum wage for 9 to 5. They got an hour break coming to them in that time, last I checked. Let me just make sure. US break requirements for 8-hour day. Yeah, okay, a 30-minute meal break. All breaks lasting under 20 minutes are considered part of the workday and must be paid. So if you deny them the 30-minute meal break and you require them to clock out for a break of less than 20 minutes, then you are paying them less than the minimum wage because they will not have been paid for their full 8 hours, even though by law they had that coming to them. And I actually did not know about that last part. Actually, yeah, I got completely screwed over. There was an employer I had a very long time ago, and there were all sorts of fucked up things they did to me, but I had only just realized that wage theft was one of them.
Dumb shit. It's like $3. Minimum wage for servers is like $2.13 an hour. That's not paying less than minimum wage though.
Yes, but if you pay them less than that, then that's paying less than minimum wage, you dickhead.
Tipped positions have a lower minimum wage. Tipped jobs in certain states go below. No, I'm pretty sure there's a tipped minimum wage.
Yeah, he's pretty sure. He's pretty sure about this. This guy, like, feels comfortable talking about how wage theft is not really a problem and not really a thing. He didn't know that there is a specific minimum wage for tip people. Maybe he should kind of shut the fuck up, because that's kind of a really basic thing. And in fact, if you go, if you've worked anywhere in the U.S., they're required to put up a thing that says what the current minimum wage is, and it does state the minimum wage for tip people. If you go in, like, to do takeaway at a restaurant or something like that, chances are, right behind the till, you will see that sign saying what the minimum wage is supposed to be, including the minimum wage for tip people. Like, how the fuck do you not know this?
That's different than paying...
I've never worked a tip job in my life, and I know that, because I read the signs.
Less than, like, actually minimum wage or whatever.
Like, fuck, I've never worked a tip job. I would do so... I would have just been fucking starving if I worked a tip job.
If you're a tipped employee and you don't get less than minimum wage from tips, your employer has to pay that. Yes, that's true. Although I'm almost positive you would be immediately fucking fired from your job if you somehow found a way to make less than minimum wage in a fucking tip position. I'm pretty sure you would just get fired immediately.
Well, that would be another form of wage theft, incidentally. Like, what the fuck is that in the background?
Less than normal, not the tipped wage. Thoughts on tip culture, by the way? Tip culture is fucking out of control.
Okay, chat, what do you think he's about to say? Somehow, just judging from these last 10 minutes that we've been hearing, I don't think he's about to say that it's fucked up that people have to ingratiate themselves to customers in order to be able to be paid enough to cover rent.
It needs to stop. Dude, now when you go to the gas station, I've gone to a gas station in Miami that turned the screen and had the tip thing on it. I'm like, bro. It sucks because I'm like a max tipper, okay? I make a lot of money. I'll do 20-25% basically wherever I go.
That's not max tipping, motherfucker. I mean, it varies based on how I'm doing, but I mean, my tendency, if I'm in a position to do it, if I go someplace like, I have, you know, one of my natural habitats as a writer is cafes. Haven't been to one in ages because of the fucking pandemic, which really sucks, but there you are. But, like, I make a point, since all I'll get is, like, 2 Americanos and maybe a sparkling water, and I'll be there for hours just writing away, and I want to keep everybody sweet. You know, they're all, you know, I want people to be happy to see me when I come in the door, and so I will tip 100% on that bill, because I've just been sitting there for quite a long time, and they're not, you know, occupying a table that somebody else might have ordered more expensive things on.
But now I'm starting to reconsider it everywhere. Now I'm like, I don't know if I should tip any of you motherfuckers.
Oh, of
like,
course. That's what he means about tip culture. Not that workers should be paid enough that they don't have to rely on tips. Just he doesn't think that they should get tips. They should just get the shitty wages. And he thinks that 20-25% is a max tip.
Y'all are making way too much money. Sitting behind the counter doing a $1 tip for me getting a thing and bringing it to you for you to ring.
You think they're making way too much money? You motherfucker, you make your living bullshitting on the internet. And you're gonna say somebody who has to stand 8 hours a day at a fucking petrol station, dealing with all sorts of dickheads, doing all sorts of bullshit for probably minimum wage, and you're gonna begrudge them the fact that somebody leaves them a tip for a couple of bucks on top of that?
Up the Organized Retail Thieves Most Wanted List. Survey reveals which items are most likely to be stolen from these stores.
Okay.
Organized Retail Time has contributed to...
Because he's about to find out. Okay, Walgreens to Target. So, overwhelmingly... Well, like, Walgreens, it's worth noting, you're not stealing anything that isn't just sort of a basic necessity at a Walgreens.
$94.5 billion. Holy shit. Wait, is that in 1 year? 2022 survey.
Containers of Tide detergent locked up. Wow. Yeah, again, basic shit people are stealing. People are who steal Tide, people who steal fucking laundry detergent are not like fucking teenagers doing it for a thrill. That's somebody who needs to be able to clean their clothes and can't afford fucking Tide.
Wait. Is that bigger than all of the... Oh, so that's even more than the wage theft. So
no.
He just lied.
No, he didn't. Actually, if you look, the fucking... Larson, okay, other types of theft. If you read this pie chart, which he didn't, you will find that the other types of theft are in the top left corner there, top left corner of a circle. I am not a geometrist. Geometrician? Geometer? Geometricist. Fuck, I don't know. you'll find larceny, burglary, and auto theft and robbery. The robbery is 0.34 billion. Auto theft 3.8 billion. Can't make out burglary, but minimum wage violations alone 23.2 billion. Overtime violations 8.80 billion. And his chat's in the way of the rest of it. And notice this says a 94.5 billion inventory shrinkage issue. That's not the same thing as saying that that 94.5 billion was worth of stuff was stolen. And it's not clear whether these are from the same year.
2022 survey. Wait. Is that bigger than all of the... Oh, so that's even more than the wage theft.
No,
so he just...
No, it isn't. Larceny is actually a very... well, it isn't the smallest. Robbery is the smallest. But this is January 22. Yeah, okay. And the figures that he was looking at for the other one, in the other article, are for 2022. So it is after 2022. This is talking about prior to 2022.
Lied.
No, he didn't. No, he didn't. Look at the fucking dates, Steven the Density.
He just lied.
No,
okay,
he
hold
didn't.
on.
Read. It's right in front of you.
Federal Wage and Hour Division Investigation 2021 found on average 1,000...
Yeah, what was that number? Oh, 2021, not 2022. So he's looking at figures for 2 different fucking years. But let's see. I'm just gonna look. Okay. Damn it. For 2023. Let's see. That's 2017. Okay. This is 3 months ago. Doesn't cite a source, and the number sounds this number sounds low. Okay, wage theft. For I'm just okay. 2023. Wage, okay. Study on wage theft 2023. Because he's looking at 2 different numbers. And claiming that Thought Slime is lying because he pointed out the correct numbers for the year he was talking about. Here, I'm just gonna pop this in here. It's interesting because it's about how most wage theft probably does not get even reported. So even these numbers are probably low.
$1,211.70 for each employee due back wages. The federal government might not know it. I don't need... How? Why, damn. I wonder what this is about. I wonder what... Work to ensure working people in the U.S. see the wages protections they earn, blah, blah, blah. Oh, this just links to this. This doesn't tell me anything. I wonder how much heavy lifting average is doing here.
Well, probably the same amount that it always is. The point is, if he looks at the fucking chart, he doesn't even need to read the text. I know he's got a problem with, like, reading the text of things. The chart actually shows how much the other kinds of property crime are costing.
Failure to pay overtime? Yeah, I'm just trying to think of how, because for every job that I've worked on, obviously I'm sure it's different, but for every job that I've worked, like there's a clock. Like you clock in and you clock out, and it's pretty strict.
Yes, and see, the thing about that clock is that a lot of employers will make you clock out and then go back to work, or will make you work before you even clock in.
Like if you were cheating the
Or they make you clock out for breaks that should be paid by law.
clock, you'd have to go to payroll, HR. You'd have to go to a whole other department and tell them to cook the books.
Okay, leaving aside that isn't actually all that hard, because I mean, kind of that's what payroll does. No, you just have to tell the employee, okay, you got to clock out for this. You know, if you wanna go to the bathroom, you have to clock out. Like, I've had employers do that. It's totally illegal, but they've done it.
Like it would be almost impossible. So I'm curious.
Oh wow, it would be so difficult to. I mean, because you got to get payroll involved. You see, and like they're in the same company, so that they have to do what the same boss says. So it would be totally impossible. I mean, it's like we're talking Great Heist territory here for a boss to convince their payroll department to short workers.
How you would like not pay somebody overtime?
It's extremely easy not to pay people overtime.
No, in a small.
I mean, again, look, $8.8 billion in 2023. Okay. In 2021. Or no, in 2020 that would be. In overtime violations alone.
Small business, I think you probably could, but.
I mean, Amazon does it.
A lot of jobs have timesheets, but you figure out how long you work. My industry has it. Okay, Doombug, you're British, okay? You guys probably don't have clocks yet, okay? And Big Ben is under construction constantly, so you guys don't know. Studies have found inflated rates of wage theft violations in markets employing women in foreign-born populations, and there are indications of wage exploitation and wage theft are among key motivations for employers hiring migrant workers. In the former population, women are at much greater risk for wage violation. Undocumented workers or unauthorized immigrants stood at the highest risk levels. That makes sense. Education, longer tenured employment, and English proficiency work to be influential factors in employee population.
Okay, so he's actually reading something, but he still hasn't read the fucking
Relations,
chart.
all three variables
Or noticed the
to reduce the probability of wage theft for the aforementioned workplaces where the
Yeah, I mean, I've had a couple employers who did that. They would just completely anything that was not directly involved in doing some sort of project, we had to clock out for it. Absolute scumbagical shit.
compensation was paid in one weekly flat rate or in cash. Yeah, for sure. Saw a higher instance of wage theft. Smaller businesses with less than 100 employees also saw a higher instance of rate of violations in larger businesses. Once the manufacturing industry, repair service, and private home employment, highest risk violation.
Yeah.
Okay, makes more sense.
And remember, this is, I mean, he was trying to make the point that actually it's not as bad if you, like, steal a worker's wages that they busted their ass all day for than if you steal a bottle of Tide from Walgreens.
Destiny, places consider stuff not clocking out to use the bathroom wage theft?
Yeah, by law, that is wage theft. I mean, it's wage theft if you require them to clock out to use the bathroom, because that is a break shorter than 20 minutes.
I've only had 3 real jobs. How many? McDonald's, casino, work study, and paper route. 2 real jobs? I've never heard of anybody clocking out to use the bathroom before. Do people do?
Wow, like, you need to get around. I've had multiple jobs require me to do that.
Do this? That's possible, I guess, but I've never heard of that in my entire life in any type of...
Motherfucker, maybe your lack of exposure to everyday life should make you hesitant to comment like this.
job ever. Carpet cleaning? Oh, I wasn't like on the clock for carpet cleaning. I wasn't on the clock for paper route either.
they didn't have to deal with the loss to their profit margins caused by shoplifting is extremely naive in my opinion. Because why would they? Why would they just keep the money? That's what they're trying to loss is, or the rate that they give out raises, or the hours they give their workers, or whatever. And like, the idea that companies would be willing to pay their employees more money if they didn't have to deal with the loss to their profit margins caused by shoplifting is extremely naive in my opinion. Because why would they? Why wouldn't they just keep the money? That's what they're trying to do, to have all of the money. Likewise, the idea that they might reduce their hours or hire fewer people as a result of shoplifting losses operates on the same assumption that a company would, for whatever reason, be willing to pay more than it absolutely needed to pay as...
Well, no, the stores just close. That's what happens when you shoplift in certain neighborhoods. I also really wish these fucking losers with the rich moms and dads that have lived in expensive suburbs their whole life. I wish you...
Okay. Which actually does not describe Thought Slime, it's worth noting.
You go and shop in like poor neighborhoods or shitty neighborhoods. Bro, nothing is more mind than LA, where I swear to God, you could be in one place that's like all lit up, all nice and bright, and you can walk like 10 minutes and you run into gas stations that you can't even go inside past like fucking 6 o'clock because it's all locked down and you've got to talk to the guy through the window because they...
Yeah, that's a lot of places. That's not an LA specific thing. I mean, there are fucking garages like that in Cardiff.
Won't even let anybody in the fucking store to buy anything. Or where you go to places and like the deodorant is behind a locked case.
Well, yeah. Why is the deodorant behind a locked case, do you think? Since you were just talking about how people shoplifting probably aren't doing it for basic necessities. Since nobody's shoplifting basic necessities to any significant degree, because in his universe nobody is that poor in the U.S., why would they be wasting all their time and money locking down the deodorant?
The deodorant is behind a locked case, okay? Shit sucks.
Like, I mean, LA, it's worth noting, has at various times had, there are neighborhoods where infant mortality is roughly on the same level as it is in Peru.
It feels horrible. It feels gross. Ugh.
Ugh, the pores. Like, it feels gross to be around poverty. He doesn't know... Yeah, like, he doesn't consider that maybe it might suck to be in it.
What? A reward for good behavior? They will always operate with as few people as they feel they can get away with. In fact, if anything, the threat of shoplifting probably incentivizes them to have more employees working at any given time. For decades now, people have been predicting that the rise of automated checkouts would result in huge losses of entry-level jobs in the service sector. Turns out it didn't, specifically because these companies still want people around on account of shoplifting. So they're...
Yeah, exactly, because, I mean, if anything, those automated checkout systems really, would make it easier if there weren't people watching over.
It could be argued shoplifters are job creators. As an aside here, Walmart makes money from their employees. That's why there's a Walmart. What we call Walmart is like a legal abstraction, an entity that exists solely to profit from the labor of others. Walmart doesn't do things, it gets other people to do things and then takes the money. Without others doing that labor, there isn't a Walmart. The idea that if Walmart starts losing money, that they're going to start firing people rests on the assumption that hiring people is like a favor Walmart is doing for them, as though Walmart hires employees to give back to the community instead of...
Yeah, like, obviously. But it is time to start wrapping up. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the stream. I will be back next week, Friday, 23:30 U.S. Eastern Time. Look forward to seeing you then. And let me just drop the Discord link as well. For anyone who isn't already there. Sorry. I'm not sure. Have a good night, good luck, and fuck Stephen the Density.